always knew that I was going to grow up, and as soon as I was old enough, that I'd start jumping out of airplanes, just like my dad. On my 16th birthday, I did that. In my entrepreneurial life, I did not have that full conviction of my success. But inside me, I realized there was fear and doubt. Once you start developing the habits of
Mhm.
taking quick, immediate action on your goals in real time, you will start to see progress. And that will, in turn, develop your self-belief and increase that to a point to where you'll say, wow, this is working and I actually can do this.
You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello, everyone. Today we're meeting Bryan Gile. He is a serial entrepreneur, professional athlete, an author, and a speaker. Hello, Bryan. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation by exploring your journey of becoming the person you are today. What was the pivotal moment in your life where you realized that this is your passion in life?
Okay. So throughout my life, I've been a professional skydiver. I was kind of born into this sport. My dad has been skydiving for a very long time. He's retired from jumping now, but when I was a little kid, I grew up on what we call drop zones. Those are places where people skydive in the northwest of the United States in Oregon. And I just grew up on weekends watching my dad skydive, and I always knew that I was going to grow up. And as soon as I was old enough, that I'd start jumping out of airplanes, just like my dad. On my 16th birthday, I did that and have basically never looked back since then. So pretty much every weekend for the last 25 years, I've been jumping out of airplanes, either Saturday, Sunday, or handful of days throughout the week. And I wouldn't call myself a natural at many things in life, and I certainly wouldn't call myself a natural at flying through the air at a high rate of speed. But because grew up for so long watching my father jump out of airplanes, I just knew that this was something I was going to do, and I knew it was something I was going to get good at beyond any shadow of a doubt. I was going to learn anything that I needed to learn in order to fly with other people in different formations. Imagine the pictures you've seen of people holding hands in like big groups in the air. That takes a lot of skill to do. It doesn't just happen accidentally when you
Mhm.
shotgun a bunch of humans out of an airplane at 13,000 or
Yes, I
15,000
would
feet or whatever.
imagine.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of birds flying, in a flock. Birds are very good at flying. Some say the best. And, it takes a lot of skill for anything in the air to be in kind of a tight formation. So I naturally came into skydiving with 100% belief that I would become skilled at the sport. And it didn't happen overnight. It took years, but I put in the work consistently to improve my skill levels in this area of life because I knew that it would pay off. And eventually what ended up happening is, they say that if you really want to get good at anything in life, that you need to love it, right? Or that you should really
Yeah.
be passionate about what you're trying to pursue. And really the reason for that is because if you are in love and if you are passionate with your pursuit in life, it doesn't have to be a sport. It can be your business, it could be raising your kids. You will put an above average amount of effort and focus into it, both of which are incredibly important. I ended up becoming a world record holder, I think at the age of 28. It was when I achieved my first world record in skydiving, and that was for the 138-way person formation above Skydive Chicago. I believe that was in like 2012. So I had trained for years at that point. I think I'd been skydiving for 13 years. And when I got my first world record,
Mhm.
it was a massive accomplishment for me. I've achieved a total of six since then. We're shooting for number seven here in Arizona next week, 1 week from now. When I
Mhm.
reached my first world record in skydiving for large formations, obviously that was a huge celebratory moment for me, but at the same time, I had to reflect on myself because I wasn't having that success everywhere else in life. I was actually
Mhm.
a world-class athlete, top 1% in my sport globally, but I was also trying to start businesses. I was trying to be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, and sitting in front of a desk just wasn't natural for me. Jumping out of airplanes was, it's really fun. If you haven't done it yet, you should try it.
You
It's
know,
not for
I want to
everybody.
try myself. I never done it.
You want to try it?
Yeah,
You would love
sure.
it. If you haven't already said there's absolutely no way you would ever go skydiving, it means you will. And some people just need a push. So I'm here for that if you need
Mm.
that too. For others, it's not for them. But
Mhm.
when I sat and reflected after becoming a world record holder at something, that wow, I'm achieving so much success in one area of my life, but I'm actually failing as an entrepreneur at the same time.
Mm.
I was 28 years old. I was trying to start some online businesses, and like I said, sitting in front of a desk, shooting emails and building web pages and trying to generate traffic just wasn't something that I was natural at. And I
Mhm.
didn't know how to become skilled at it, but I tried very, very hard. I worked very, very hard and was not having really any success at all. So after achieving so much success in my skydiving life, I sat down one night. I remember the night very clearly. I was pretty frustrated at, how can I be completely failing at something and then achieving so much success at something else? Obviously, business and skydiving are very different. Business and
Yeah.
soccer, business in any sport, they're two different things, but there must be something that I'm doing as an athlete that I'm not doing as an entrepreneur on a fundamental level in order to see huge success in one area and failure in another. And what I figured out was that I had 100% conviction in myself to succeed as a skydiver in all of my skydiving goals, essentially ever since I was born. And that was the natural thing that I've been lucky to have, been born into this world with in one area. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
that I was a natural athlete at flying, but I naturally believed in my ability to succeed on such a high level that that belief carried all of my actions for over a decade at that point to be on a world stage within my sport.
Mm.
And then it carried me multiple times after that as well. But in my entrepreneurial life, I did not have that full conviction of my success. I tried very hard. I worked very hard. I focused a lot. But inside me, I realized there was fear and doubt. Okay.
Yeah.
I was very focused on becoming a successful entrepreneur, but inside myself, there wasn't that 100% belief that it would be successful. There was a small, tiny little nagging voice, not usually at the forefront of my mind, when you doubt yourself, when you experience fear for any of your goals, really that can manifest in a couple different ways. And the easy one to find is maybe a habit of negative self-talk, where you literally tell yourself,
Mm.
I can't achieve this goal. I don't think I can do it. That's pretty easy to identify, especially once we understand how important it is to identify that string of thought patterns and internal dialogue. But there's also your internal feelings that
Yeah.
those don't necessarily have a dialogue. It's just a feeling of fear. Kind of like if you're staring out the edge of an airplane, you might not be talking yourself through what you feel right now, but you feel it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that night, I was sitting in my kitchen, kind of gazing off into space as I realized that, wow, I don't have any fear or doubt at all in my ability to succeed at my athletic goals, specifically in skydiving. But I
Mhm.
do have that doubt as a businessman. What if so first of all, that was the core difference. And
Mhm.
what if I can recreate my mindset as an athlete in skydiving into my entrepreneurial life or even to other areas of my life, such as becoming a better surfer, becoming better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, learning foreign languages? What if I can recreate that same mindset and back up my action in those areas I think I should achieve the same results. And so what I did was at that moment, I built a three-step a three-step system, a three-step mental process that is essentially designed to enhance your level of belief in yourself, but backed by real world action.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell anyone on this podcast or anywhere to believe in themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Information like that is great to hear, but what you really need is you need a system and a set of tools to be able to mentally carry yourself through your goals, whether it be finance, whether it be developing your career, anything. You need a system to carry your positive actions and positive thoughts towards achieving those goals because you're going to hit a lot of obstacles. And
Mm-hmm.
when those obstacles arise, are you able to really overcome yourself? Because the obstacles have a workaround. But if you're tripping and you're failing over your own fear and doubt as to whether you can be successful or not, what actually happens is you mathematically calculate your own failure in the future. So your thoughts and your actions today, every second, they add up in quantity over time. If you really truly believe that you will be successful at something, it allows you to act and continue taking action in ways that will overcome those obstacles. And in doing so, you really kind of calculate your odds of success in advance. Okay. Doesn't mean you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be successful at any particular goal, but over the course of your life, over all of the goals that you will have, in general, you can stack those odds for success. You can also stack them for failure. So
Yeah.
that's what this system that I worked out called positive immediate action does is it creates a cyclical loop of positive thinking, positive reacting, and positive action towards our goals that once we start to see small developments and small wins coming into our court based on our actions, our self-belief grows, which fosters more positive thinking, more positive reactions. And you essentially create a domino effect and a snowball of momentum that really, I like to say, destines you for the success that you're looking for. And that's the mindset that you need to harness is that out of the starting blocks, the odds are so far in your favor of achieving your
Mm-hmm.
goal that really getting there is just time. You are going to get there,
Yeah.
and the rest of it is just carrying through the motions of time to get there. So I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna break down what this thought process is. Essentially, what we're going to do, so we have three steps here. Step number one is you want to start recognizing all of the thoughts that you have throughout the day. You're going to think of this as like a background program running in your consciousness that just whenever you go about your life, you want to start to recognize the uh, positive or negative frequency of your thoughts and your emotions. But let's just start with thoughts. When you have a negative thought about yourself, let's pick a goal of learning a language. Let's say you want to learn any language at all. We'll choose Spanish. If you want to learn Spanish and you sit and tell yourself that, you know what, I think it's too hard. Like, I'm pretty good, but I'm just not getting this. That's an example of a negative thought. And all you want to
Mm-hmm.
do is categorize that thought and say, okay, I recognize that I am or I just have experienced a negative thought. All right. That's step one. Just start to recognize that. If it's about losing weight and you say, you know, I don't think I can lose this weight, I can't do it, just sit there and recognize that you are experiencing a negative thought. All right. Now, we're not going to try to fight those thoughts. Instead, we're going to work on transforming our reaction to them. When you have a thought and you tell yourself that you can't do something, for instance, that dialogue is just coming from you. There's no one else creating it at all. It's coming from inside of you. And you can choose how you react to it. You don't have to just blindly believe it. If you say,
Yeah.
you know what, I can't do this, I'm never going to be able to pull this off. Okay, you've experienced a negative thought. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Doesn't mean you have to believe it. You can work on your reactions to that thought in order to overcome it. So that's step two is what I like to do and what I suggest to people is we're going to create a mantra. And a mantra is, in this case, a series of words that are meant to kind of bestow like a positive effect upon the person. There's the sense of a mantra in Eastern philosophy. For this, what we're going to work on is just a series of words. My mantra is happy, healthy, wealthy, humble, loved. Those are five words that are very positive, five words that I am, five words that I want to be in my life. And it's useful as a reminder to ourselves that just after the moment we've experienced a negative thought and we've recognized that, we transform our reaction to it via a positive reminder that actually, one, I don't have to listen to that thought. Two,
Mm-hmm.
I have the power to decide my destiny. I have the power to decide my fate. If I believe I can do something, then I know if someone else has done this, I can figure this out. All right.
Yeah.
And that's a good rule to live by for anyone watching. If somebody else in the world has ever accomplished what it is you are trying to accomplish, it can be done. Now, all you need to do is figure out what their winning formula was. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
this three-step process will mentally get you to the area of finding that formula consistently. So when we have a negative thought and we recognize it, we transform it into a positive reminder that, you know what, we can take action here, we can be successful. And we need to back that up right away with step three called immediate action. So
Mm.
as soon as you think of uh, maybe pulling out Duolingo. I know that's a very popular language app or
Yes.
something like that, or flashcards, or maybe you're standing at a restaurant and you're thinking about ordering your food in Spanish because you know how to order a burrito or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Step three is actually taking the action to do that. Okay. And these are small goals. Okay. Don't go after your big goal with
Yeah.
step three. Don't sit and worry about a far off goal that is it's looming, it's scary, you're nervous about it. If you failed, people would laugh at you, you know, that your family might say, "Hey, we told you this wasn't going to work out." Don't worry about big goals. Big goals are nothing more than a long-term accumulation of small goals, okay? And that's what immediate action is you're going to start executing small tasks that would over time mathematically add up to the completion of your big goal, okay? And when you do that, when you say, you know what, I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes right now, immediately, not tomorrow, because here's one thing about successful people.
Mm-hmm.
Universally, they don't do stuff tomorrow. They
Yeah.
do it right now. And they actually kind of have that innately built into themselves. So, what I'm teaching you is how to ingrain positive thinking, positive reacting, and immediate action into your life on not a day by day basis, but on a moment by moment basis. This is a minute by minute system of success because successful people take action now. They might not actually be able to carry out any goal they're going after at this moment, but they will make a note to do it in the future. They will put it down on their calendar to do this in the future with the actual intent of completing it. Okay. So once you start developing the habits of
Mm-hmm.
taking quick, immediate action on your goals in real time, you will start to see progress. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks. It really doesn't take much more for once you lean into this three-step system, which I talk about in depth in my book, Be Great, Be Happy, you will see results. And that will in turn develop your self-belief and increase that to a point to where you'll say, wow, this is working and I actually can do this. And now that your self-belief has increased just a little bit, you know, level up just one level, now it's easier to have more positive thoughts about your ability to succeed. It's easier to carry out reactions to those saying, yep, I can do this. And therefore, the action flows even easier after that. And then the system loops again and again and again and again. I'll give you an example of how this worked for me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when I created the system, positive immediate action, the three steps are recognize, transform, act. Uh, I thought about becoming an author. Okay. And I was
Mm-hmm.
not an author at that point. Now I am. Um, I had the immediate thought of who's going to read my book? What am I going to write about? Who am I to sit down and write a book and try to sell it to the world? Which is, those are very common thoughts for anyone writing
Right.
a book to have. If you want to know what it's like to start out being an author, it sounds something like that, or it
Yeah.
could. Okay. And so I sat and recognized and said, wait a second, those are negative thoughts that if first of all, I don't have to agree with them and I don't have to believe them. And in my
Mm-hmm.
skydiving life, I know for a fact I just became a world record holder by not leaning in to those negative thoughts. So I recognized that thought pattern. And the important thing here that it's really critical to understand is that those thoughts multiply into the future and decide your outcome before you even get there. So at that moment, when I was thinking about becoming a writer, I understood that if I didn't overcome that self-limiting dialogue, then I would already decide my fate as an author, as a failed author, far into the future. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter the action that I would take towards that goal. If I allowed any sliver of fear and doubt and negative self-talk to persist, my outcome was already decided, and I needed to decide it to be a positive outcome. So I recognized that thought saying, "Hey, actually, I can sit down and start writing. And you know what? It might not be great right now, but I can work
Mm-hmm.
on this. I can go through editing rounds, and I'm going to write 10 pages today." Okay. So what I did is I recognized my negative thought. I said my mantra. I transformed it into a positive reaction saying, I can do this. And then I took immediate action of sitting down to write right then at that very moment. And you know what happened? That
Mm-hmm.
negative voice popped up again and said, this is a dumb idea. It's not going to work. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. You're not going to be successful at this. So repeat. Recognize the negative voice, transform it into a positive reaction, take immediate action. I kept writing. And that process went over and over again for a period of about, I want to say 10 days, to where I looked down at the word count of what I was writing, which was my very first pages as an author. I don't even remember what it was. I'm sure it wasn't good. What was important was that after about a week, I looked down at my page count in Microsoft Word and I had written 70 pages.
Oh,
And I said to
nice.
myself, holy smokes, this is working. If I can write 70 pages, I can write 100 pages. If I
Mm-hmm.
can write 100 pages, I can finish a book. I can become an author. And that was the moment where I had overcome what's called my inner critic. Okay. When you have limiting thoughts, when you have limiting beliefs about yourself, in psychology, we typically call that your inner critic. And that's your number one enemy that you want to overcome is that voice in your head that says that you can't do it. And by recognizing, transforming, and acting on those thoughts in a positive manner, you will get to a point where you can beat that critic and say to yourself, wow, I can do it. And that's when your level of belief increases. That was when I was 28. I kept writing, I kept writing, I kept writing, and I ended up writing the beginning of Be Great, Be Happy, my book
Mm-hmm.
that's out right now. Uh, in doing so, I learned so much about my mindset for success that my career outside of writing accidentally took off. Opportunities just
Wow.
started landing in my lap, and shortly after that, I ended up becoming the national director of sales for a company called Surf Lakes International. Okay, a
Mm-hmm.
few years later. Um, I had gone from having no experience as an entrepreneur and being a failed entrepreneur to now being a national director of sales for a company that at that point in time had raised like $40 million. Dollars. Okay. From
Mm-hmm.
there, I went on to do 4 million in sales for them in a 2.5 year period. And all of that was possible because of this three-step system, positive immediate action, because it consistently allows you to overcome a lack of belief, instill strong belief in yourself, which allows action. And that's where all of your hopes and dreams lie. So, like I said earlier, I'm not going to teach anyone, I'm not going to tell anyone to believe in themselves. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm showing you how to believe in yourself at the level of a world-class athlete and now successful entrepreneur. It's worked for me in writing and publishing my book. I just published my book in August. Sales are coming out. It's receiving,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's receiving straight 5 stars. I get messages from people every week on this book now saying
Mm.
like, "Wow, this is really, really good. It works. I see it transforming my life right now." So it's worked for myself as an author. It's worked for myself as an entrepreneur. I speak 3 foreign languages, Spanish, Portuguese, French. I've traveled the world, lived in 7 different distinct kind of locations of it. Um, this is a very strong system that is meant to set you up for success in your goals before you even start. Um, I know we've talked about a lot right now. Is there anything that I didn't make clear? Is there anything that
Wow.
you want to?
So, yeah, everything was so good. And I'm so glad that you shared the system with our listeners. And I feel like it has the essence of what it needs to be successful. And like you mentioned, the first step of recognizing, I think that's where people usually struggle
Mhm.
with inner critic because sometimes they identify themselves as being their thoughts or emotions, something that come and go as temporary. And we are not that. We are the awareness or the
Yes,
witness of them. If we have that space and we know in our mind that we are something different and we can just separate ourselves from the thoughts, so then the way we deal with them when they come would be different. Then we would recognize that this is something that just appeared because why? Because it's uncomfortable for me to go out of that comfort zone. I never done it before, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna fail, right? So like you mentioned, if I have examples of people who've done it in the past, I know for sure it works. I know for sure people done it, but it wasn't me who done it. So I need to show myself the evidence, the proof. And that comes with the first, like how you react, and then you take immediate action to start celebrating those small wins and creating the snowball effect.
totally.
And then it
Yes.
just carries you on and inevitably in like it's just there is no way for you to not show yourself this evidence if you
Yeah.
progressing with that same formula. Is that correct?
You nailed it on the head. So a couple things right there. What makes this system so powerful is so my book Be Great, Be Happy, it's a 2-part book. It's one book, but in the first half of it, I'm teaching you a system of how to become world-class, excellent, or at least above average at anything in the world. Okay, here is the blueprint for how to do that as taught by a multi-time world record holding athlete. That's awesome. But what about our happiness? Okay, be happy is the second part of the book. And what we dive into in there is the ego. And that's what you just, highlighted for us is that humans tend to associate that they are the voice in their head. That when you
Yeah.
stand and look at yourself in the mirror, when you look at a picture of yourself, any of those thoughts that you have, you are those thoughts. And that's actually not true, okay? Those thoughts are kind of like a recording of your own voice that you're listening to. The recording is from you, you made it, but you're not that recording. Okay? If you film yourself, if you film video of yourself and then watch it again and listen intently to what you said in the video,
Mm-hmm.
that video was you. It's a part of you, but it's not you. It is separate from you. And when you can learn, which will teach you to separate yourself from being the internal talker, the ego, the inner critic, from the awareness that is observing that dialogue, that's where the magic happens because
Yeah.
you can sit and observe a limiting thought and say to yourself, okay, I recognize that this thought is happening, but I don't have to believe it because it's not actually coming from me. It's coming from a part of me who's scared about failing and is trying to keep me safe. It's trying to keep me from branching out too much and experiencing failure. No one likes failure. So getting to a point which we'll work on quite a bit in part two of Be Great, Be Happy, to where you can separate yourself from your inner dialogue strengthens the positive immediate action system so much because you are able, after you've recognized a self-limiting thought or even a negative emotion about yourself or a negative impulse, you're able to separate yourself from it and observe it. Once you can observe it, then you can decide whether you want to agree with it or not. So you hit that one on the nail. Second thing you mentioned was celebrating our small wins. Okay. Another thing that's quite typical in goal achievement is humans don't want to celebrate their small wins. They think that, you know
Yeah.
what, who cares? Like, yeah, big whoop-de-doo. I accomplished this small thing, but I don't have the big outcome. I don't have the big result, so it doesn't matter. My small
Mm.
win that I got yesterday doesn't matter. Okay. I see it in skydiving all the time. People, we're trying to balance on the wind at very high rates of speed, and it's like trying to do a headstand on ice that you can't touch.
Mm.
Not it's
Yeah.
not easy to do. And so progression in this sport is very, very slow. And what you often find is that when someone's learning how to balance and orientate themselves in the air, that 6 months ago they were not as good as they are today, but the
Mhm.
progress that they see today isn't as much as they want. They wanted more. They wanted to see more progress. And as a result, they tend to discount any progress that they've made because they say, you know what, it's not enough.
Mm.
And once we understand that you're always going to want more, the ego, that
Mm.
voice inside our heads, it's greedy. It wants more. It wants to be more successful. It wants to have more money. It wants to be in better shape. It wants to look younger, whatever. It always wants more. Once you understand that that actually can never be satisfied, is when you can start to celebrate your small wins and say, you know what, these are enough. Okay. And if I keep stacking these small wins, I can create something big down the line. But just side note is celebrate your small wins because that is the way to victory and keep stacking those up.
Yeah, and not only we're showing ourselves that we cannot get that satisfaction immediately, but also reminding ourselves that what we've done so far, it's already a big progress, even though it doesn't seem like it, but you see the improvement over time, little by little, and that's the evidence for you to show that you're going to the right direction. You just need to keep going.
Hmm.
So everything matters. Every little step that you take matters. And your consistency and your commitment to the process every single day, you just need to remind yourself why you're doing that. And also, what is your reason? What is your why? Like you have to kind of like have that internal motivation. It's not enough to listen to the podcast or, reading a book, but you have to feel the connection with your internal why, and that kind of like help you to move forward as well. So you are doing it not just for the sake of doing it, but maybe there is something more to it, right? Sometimes people trying to achieve certain goals to like prove themselves to other people, let's say, right?
Hmm.
So is that your purpose why you're doing that, or it's something for yourself, right? So maybe some kind of dream that you want to accomplish that you had since your childhood, right? So it has to be something that is essential or something like you connected to internally, not just to please other people, let's say, or prove them wrong or yourself wrong or
Yeah.
whatever that might be. But that's just something I also want to like highlight, so for people to really like ask themselves, because nowadays with all this distraction, sometimes we find ourselves doing something we don't even know why we're doing that, right? And then we feel ourselves overwhelmed, burned out, and anxious, stressed out. And then we realize that, all this time spent was for nothing. Why were I even engaged in that activity?
Spot on. I have a strong opinion that I never compare myself to others. And like you just said, it's very easy to do that. Subconsciously, it happens all the time. So when I do compare myself to others, I just
Right.
recognize that I am doing it and then kind of take ownership. They're like, hey, I'm not anyone else, and I don't need to be anyone else. I don't need to be as successful as anyone else. I'm me. What I am accomplishing, what I'm doing in life is enough. And like you said, go internally to decide, why are you pursuing your goals, whatever they are, whether it's your career,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your weight or anything. Are you pursuing your goals because it's something that you want for yourself that would make you happy? Because that's a great reason to pursue a goal. If
Yeah.
you're trying to be like other people, be careful with that a little bit, because there's always someone more successful. There's always someone in better shape. It's a never-ending cycle. It's kind of like a dog chasing its tail. You're never going to quite get that tail. So it's very important to never compare ourselves to others, and that allows us to celebrate our small wins. Because if you do compare yourself to others, well, they've accomplished a lot. They're so successful in their goals. They're so far ahead of us in A, B, and C areas. So our small wins don't matter. But if we're not so attached to where someone else is in life, that is exactly how to celebrate our small wins. And the easiest way to do so is, if you're trying to progress at anything, don't look at your performance or your progress in it today or even this week. Those are very small amount of time frames for us to expect improvement, okay? Instead, you want to look at where you were 6 months ago. You want to look at where you were 1 year ago, because that should be, if you've been working towards your goal consistently, you should notably be farther along than you were back then. And that counts. Like you said, that matters.
Yeah.
The next step is to say, okay, where do I think I can realistically get to in the next 6 months? And what is the plan for me to get there? I have a section in Be Great, Be Happy at the end of part one, where we're teaching success. It's called the Golden Nuggets section, and
Mm.
we're actually talking about it right now. So I think golden nugget number 2 or 3 is never compare yourself to others. The second one is what I call copy, dissect, repeat. Okay. We're taught as grade schoolers, as soon as we get into school, we are taught by our teachers to not copy off our neighbors. Do
Yeah.
your own work. Okay. If you don't do your own work, you're cheating and you're never going to get ahead in life. And that is, you know what? It's a good idea to do your own work in school because it increases your intelligence. And then smart people after school, they copy the heck out of everyone else in life who is successful. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. If
Mm.
there's someone else out there who is successful at what you want to do, your job is to figure out exactly what the small details are of their success formula that add up to the end result. Everyone in business does this. Every professional athlete does this. Really, anyone in the world, when we figure out how to do something as humans, kind of the rest of the pack tends to go, okay, that's a good idea. And if you're off on your own saying, you know what, no, I need to figure this out on myself, on my own. I was told, don't ever learn anything from anyone else. I need to get this me.
Mm.
You're probably going to walk around in the dark a lot looking for a light switch when
Mm.
finding a mentor, finding a guru, and really dissecting what it is they do at a small level, at many small levels, to be successful. That's the fastest way to get it done. What I'm not suggesting is that, if someone else has a small business that you copy what their business is and open up store next door to them or something like that. You know,
Right.
there's always value in doing your own thing, but one of the best things anyone can do to learn is to find a mentor. You don't even have to know them personally. How are we doing on time, real quick?
We're good. We
We're good?
almost,
Okay.
yes.
I want to tell you guys how I became let's call it an intermediate to advanced salsa dancer in my mid 30s.
Mm.
So let's start off just with the elephant in the room. I'm a white guy. White guys are not known for dancing skills. That's not really a thing culturally
Yeah.
around the world. I don't know. We didn't grow up with it as much. So if I was able to become the fastest learning salsa student that my first instructor had ever seen, and she actually texted me this after reading my book. She says, "Wow, like when you came in, you had, almost no skills. You were brand new and you ended up being the fastest learning student I have ever had." She had read my book at that point. She goes, "Okay, I get it. I understand what you were doing now. We're gonna get into copy, dissect, repeat." I started salsa dancing, I think at the age of like 36 or 7 or 8 or something like that. And I started taking private lessons in San Diego. I found an instructor named Silky, great woman. And I went in, not knowing anything. And because I wasn't going to expect grand success, I'm athletic. So I know I was going to learn
Mm-hmm.
this kind of quick. And it's actually not that different from skydiving, but I wasn't going to expect big success right away. Her and I ended up doing a 10-hour block of privates. And at the end of that first 10 hours, I had learned the basics of dancing salsa. I was absolutely a beginner. And this one day in bed in San Diego, I just woke up on a Saturday. It was, pretty rainy out, so it wasn't skydiving.
Mm-hmm.
I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a salsa dancing partner, a couple called Adrian y Anita. Adrian and Anita. Anita is Brazilian, Adrian is Spanish, I believe. They both live in Barcelona. They are six-time world champion salsa dancers.
Wow.
And they were doing this dance that was just super cool to watch. Is obviously so far above my skill level at that point in time, but because I come from a long skydiving background, and visualization is incredibly important in skydiving. You've got 45 seconds in the air every time you do a skydive about, and we do what's called dirt diving on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
where we're going to walk through the skydive that we're doing, and we need to actually be able to close our eyes and see the other people that we're
Mm.
flying with so that we understand what we're going to do in the air because you can't talk really. They're
Right.
working on microphones and sound equipment for in-air communication, but pretty much it's sign language up there at best. So we visualize a lot. And because I've practiced that quite a bit, I was able to look at this dance of Adrian and Anita and say, okay, I've got nothing to do today. I'm going to sit and I'm going to slow motion. I'm going to download this video and I'm going to scrub through it in slow motion, frame by frame. And I'm going to map out every single foot placement and hand placement that Adrian, the lead, in salsa, there's a lead dancer and a follow dancer. I'm going to
Mm.
map out all of his moves one by one in this, like, it was like a 30-second dance. Okay. And if I can understand what those moves are, if I can dissect what those moves are, I can start to visualize them and I can start to
Mm.
walk through them by myself in my living room, in my kitchen, seeing an imaginary follower in front of me and really feeling my way through the dance of two six-time world champions. So that's
Nice.
what I did that day. And this is called an above average level of commitment. Okay. If you do this for your goals, you are immediately acting in an above average way right there. You should expect above average results. Okay. And I'm not the only one that does stuff like this. So I mapped out this footwork. I think I spent 4 hours figuring out this
Mm.
30-second routine. And then I went to my dance instructor next week and I said, "Hey, Silky, I've got a video that I'd like us to try." And obviously, it's very advanced, but I think over our next 10-hour block, we're not trying to do this in an hour. Over our next 10 sessions, let's work towards dancing through this. And that's exactly what we did. Okay. I started off believing fully that I
Mm-hmm.
could learn this dance. I did the work outside of class to understand what the footwork and what the hand positions were. Then I went into class and I drilled it with an instructor. And I would say at about maybe 16 or 17 hours, my first 16, 17 hours as a salsa dancer, I was making my way through the dance of two six-time world champions. Okay.
Wow.
And that was the progression that my dance instructor talked about being the fastest she had ever seen because she had never had a student who had gone through and mapped out footwork like that. Now, did I look like a world champion? No. Obviously not, right? But that was never the point. The point was to get through that dance and learn it, and in doing so, increase my own skill level substantially.
Yeah.
I went on to move to Puerto Rico in like 2020, 2021, and Puerto Rico's national sport is basically salsa. You land in the airport there, they're playing salsa music. You go to a gas
Wow.
station,
So you were
salsa music.
ready. Yeah,
Yeah,
at
I was
that
ready for
point.
it. I was ready for
Yeah.
it. So what I kept doing is I kept taking salsa lessons. I went social dancing and copy, dissect, repeat. Okay. I would constantly find videos from this salsa pair or from others online. I would download the video and I would scrub through it in slow motion. And at home by myself, I would map out that footwork. Okay.
Mm.
When I would go and do salsa classes with my instructor, Ricky and Alana, what we would work on, I would go home and drill those techniques so that the next time I was out social dancing, uh, I walk up to a girl, I ask her to dance with me. I actually know what I'm doing at that point.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a an exact example of using one of these golden nuggets, copy, dissect, repeat, to accelerate your learning curve. And when you can triple your learning curve, which you can, you end up advancing very quickly. I want to go into one other thing as well too that really relates into what we just talked about. There's a concept in my book called continual focus. And we talk about this in the beginning of part one. Essentially, there are two laws of success. There are two X factors of success that every single successful person in the world does. It doesn't matter what they're doing. These are laws, and you have to become skilled at these if you're going to be successful at anything. The first one we already covered. That's developing an unshakable belief. It's an
Yes.
unshakable belief that you will be successful at your goal no matter what. And again, doesn't mean you're going to succeed at every single goal in life, but when you approach your goals in life over the course of your life, you're going to succeed at a lot of them, at the majority. That's what you're going for. So that's our first X factor of success. Our second X factor of success is called continual focus. And what that is what I just described to you in my salsa
Mm-hmm.
dancing story is on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you go practice your goal. Maybe you go to work, you work your side hustle, you go to salsa class, you sit down for language lessons, and you're physically working on your goal at those points in time. But which is a lot, by the way. If you're working on a goal 3 days a week, that's a lot of commitment. Good job on doing that. What about the other four, though? Because
Mm-hmm.
highly successful people, every single highly successful person, what they don't do is they don't turn their focus on when they're working on their goal and then shut their focus completely off when they're not working on it. They stay mentally engaged in their goal
Mm.
while they're taking a shower, while they're making
Right.
breakfast. Like imagine you wanted to learn the guitar, you would literally sit cooking food in your kitchen, and while your hands are free, you'd actually move your fingers through the placements, like imagining that you're holding your guitar and you'd work on the song that you're learning
Mm.
while you are not practicing, but you hear the music, you start to develop the muscle memory with your fingers for what you're trying to learn. That is called continual focus. You continually pour small amounts of energy. It doesn't have to be 4 hours a day, like I did with my dance story. This is actually highly effective in 30-second, 1 minute, or like a couple minute intervals. Okay. So again, going back to dance, when I was living in Puerto Rico, that's what I would do is I'd be in my kitchen, I'd be in my living room, and throughout my day, I might spend 30 seconds visualizing a one dance move, just one move that I'm trying to
Mhm.
work on right now. That does a couple things for me. It helps solidify muscle memory, and then it just helps me remember the move because in salsa there are like an infinite number of movements you can do with a partner and variations to them. So it's very easy to learn a bunch of moves and then forget them all. Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of want to
I
commit
know
them to them.
exactly because I learned how to dance tango, and
Cool.
I'm also in a follower role, and there's a leader, and there are tons of moves we can do together, and it's all
Yes.
improvised. But at least, like, if you know what you're doing and you connect it with the music and you follow, then it's just like beautiful how it all falls in a place. But you have to be ready for that move when the time comes.
So what you've just illustrated is the a point that I had got to earlier. You are setting yourself up to be successful at your goal of dancing tango well before it ever happens.
Yeah.
And by visualizing how someone is going to lead you through a movement, outside of practice, outside of actually dancing it, what you do is you destine yourself for that moment in the future when your lead does this move. You're prepared for it and you understand what they're going to do, what they're trying to do, so that you react in the way that you're
Mhm.
supposed to. You literally destined yourself for that by having focused on it earlier. And when you sit and you do this throughout your day, throughout your life, that is honestly one of the biggest key secrets to becoming world class at anything. Um, Related story, I was at a wind tunnel. These are indoor skydiving tunnels that we practice
Oh.
in Oceanside, California, a couple years ago. And skydiving, especially in Southern California, is cool because there's a lot of talent in Southern
Yeah.
California. And when I say talent, I mean actors, athletes, musicians,
Mm.
artists. It's the entertainment, capital of America, I would guess. And I was at the wind tunnel with this young skydiver. His name's Mitchie Brusco. He is a multi-time X Games medalist, skateboarder, big air skateboarder. So he's on like the enormous vertical vert pipe ramps. He's on the big air jumps. And he was the first person in the world to ever land a 1260 in competition, which is that's like 4.5 rotations. Okay. And I was talking to Mitchie about that, and I already knew what he was going to say.
Mm.
But I asked him, how much time did you spend thinking about that maneuver before you landed it? And he told me that it kind of cost him a relationship
Oh, wow.
because he was so focused on that trick. And I'm not saying that, people on the podcast should do this, but somebody who's a multi-time X Games a champion, which is, that's really kind of like the Olympics for skateboarding, pretty much, aside from the Olympics. Uh, he spent so much time visualizing that trick before landing it, which is why it's one of the key reasons he was able to do it. And then he said to me, I can't believe everyone doesn't do this.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
People really tend to discount the value of continual focus because it is not tangible. You can't count it. It's not hours spent in a training center with an instructor or hours at your desk, but it is an X factor. It's an unseen key component to world-class success or just becoming above average at anything. If you want to go from being if you want to go from being sub-average to average and above average at whatever, whether it's learning a language or playing basketball, do this. Do continual focus, dedicate 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes at multiple times throughout your day to just sit and visualize and focus in your goal and give it 6 months. You will see a lot of improvement over that time. I did that with my surfing. I did that with my jujitsu. Naturally, that's how I learned Spanish. Hablo español bien bueno, okay? Especialmente para un gringuito,
I
okay?
speak Russian as my language, but Spanish would be nice. Yes, something
Spanish
to
is
look
fun.
forward. Mm-hmm.
You speak English very well
Thank
also.
you.
Were you born in a bilingual household that spoke Russian and
No, no, I started learning English as my second language when I came to United States, but yeah, it didn't took me a long time. It's just me focusing on it's just like you mentioned. I immersed myself in the culture and
yeah,
just like eventually I started talking. So it's like
yeah,
inevitable, you know?
it was inevitable. How old were you when you moved to the States?
Like in my 20s, yes.
Okay. So you were very much an adult at that point,
Yes.
especially as far as learning languages go. Okay. In order for you to have gotten to the skill level where you're at in speaking a foreign language, you had to focus on this at all points in time throughout your day, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time, yes.
All
I
the
was
time.
just studying, talking in English, then working, talking in English. So it was just everywhere. And I did it on purpose. I wanted to excel and improve fast.
Cool. Cool. So you just reminded me of something. It is so important to become our goal if we really want something in life. And don't do this with just any goal. This bit of information is really for the listeners out there. It's for everyone out there who has a thing in life that is the most important thing to them. Whatever is most important to you, you need to become it in order to be very successful at it. Like if there were a dictionary with your name in it, it would say Anna from Russia moves to America at the age of 20 and focuses on English all day long. You
Yes.
became your goal. Okay. You became someone who,
Yes.
this is what I do. It's not something that I think about from time to time. It's not something I try really hard at a handful of days a week. This is who I am. And that's really what led to my success as a skydiver. I didn't plan on being born into a family that skydive, but I was. And because of that, it was just absolutely who I was. And that led me to focus so much on that goal. But I didn't focus on my surfing like that, and I didn't focus on my jujitsu like that. And I achieved pretty average results in both of those sports for a long time until I understood the importance of continual focus, which is what you were doing. Now you can do two things, okay? You can decide to use continual focus in kind of a small, just a small little sprinkle manner where you're going to use it throughout your day and you're going to see improvement in your goals, which is what I did for surfing and for jujitsu. Or you can decide to go full in with continual focus and learn a foreign language well, become
Yes.
an author, become a successful entrepreneur because you make the decision to be fully focused. And once you make that decision, you have a three-step system called positive immediate action to carry you to the finish line and get you past those moments of frustration where you say, you know what, this goal is harder than I thought it was going to be. Was learning English difficult for you?
In the beginning, it was kind of like frustrating to not being able to understand what people around are talking about. But then, like, once I really started seeing the progress little by little. Again, like seeing for myself that now first I can understand and then express myself, everything that I wanted to say. First, it was like a translation from Russian to English in a way,
Yeah.
and then it became more of you know, the structure of English, which is like different, and me expressing myself. And then I start catching myself thinking in English after
Cool.
like
Yeah.
few years practicing it, you know. So it's all kind of like progressive, but with us reminding ourselves that it's not going to be overnight success. It will take time, but with the desire and the belief in what could be accomplished, because I know other people learned other languages and it wasn't a big deal really in my mind. I was committed and really like doing something about it and not giving up, not talking negatively about what could happen, how I might feel, you know, like just not listening to that negative talk,
Yeah.
and constantly reminding myself that this is what I want, this is what I will accomplish, and it's just a matter of time, but I will get there and nothing will stop me really. And we can talk forever, but it's time for us to wrap it up. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us. And for those who would like to connect with you online, how can they find you?
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. It's been a real pleasure. For anyone interested in what we've been talking about and who'd like to know more about how to crush your goals in life and also find inner happiness as well, because goals won't make you happy. You can check out my website, begreatbehappy.com, and you can also find my book on Amazon. If you go in and type Be Great, Be Happy, it's available as ebook and paperback right now, and we'll be coming out with an audio book over the next few months.
That's great. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you, Anna.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.